Officer John Malia wasn't expecting to find a body that day. He was just doing his job, searching the thick brush along Ocean Parkway near Gilgo Beach on Long Island, New York. Police were looking for Shannon Gilbert, a 24-year-old sex worker who had disappeared 7 months earlier after making a frantic 911 call saying someone was trying to kill her. Her last known location was Oak Beach, just a few miles away. Officer Malia's canine partner, a German shepherd named Blue, suddenly stopped and began barking at something in the dense vegetation along the beach highway. What Blue had found wasn't Shannon Gilbert. It was someone else. A woman's skeletal remains, wrapped in burlap, hidden in the brush. But as investigators began to search the area more carefully, they realized this wasn't an isolated grave. There were more bodies, many more. The gruesome discovery. Over the next 4 days, police discovered 3 more sets of remains along Ocean Parkway, all within a quarter-mile stretch. All 4 victims were women. All had been wrapped in burlap. All were sex workers who had advertised on Craigslist. And this was just the beginning. In March and April 2011, investigators expanded their search. They found 6 more sets of human remains scattered along the barrier beaches of Long Island. Some were complete bodies, others were just body parts. A skull here, torso there, scattered like puzzle pieces across miles of coastline. In total, investigators discovered the remains of at least 10 victims, possibly more, buried along Long Island's beaches. They had stumbled onto a serial killer's dumping ground, a killing field that had been hidden in plain sight for years, perhaps decades. And the killer? Still unknown, still free. The victims, the Gilgo Four. The first 4 victims discovered became known as the Gilgo Four. They shared eerie similarities. Maureen Brainard Barnes, age 25, disappeared July 9, 2007, from Norwich, Connecticut. Last seen in Manhattan, telling a friend she was going to meet a client. Melissa Barthélemy, age 24, disappeared July 12, 2009, from Buffalo, New York. Last seen at her basement apartment in the Bronx. Her little sister received taunting phone calls from Melissa's cell phone after she vanished. A man's voice, using crude language, told her that Melissa was dead and that he had killed her. The calls came from crowded locations, Times Square, Madison Square Garden, making them nearly impossible to trace. Megan Waterman, age 22, disappeared June 6, 2010, from Maine. Last seen at a Holiday Inn Express in Hauppauge, Long Island. She had a 3-year-old daughter she was working to support. Amberlynn Costello, age 27, disappeared September 2, 2010, from North Babylon, Long Island. Last seen leaving her home to meet a client. Her housemate heard her on the phone with someone shortly before she left, saying she'd be back soon. All 4 women were petite, between 4'10" and 5'5" tall. All were sex workers who advertised online. All disappeared without a trace. All were found wrapped in burlap sacks along the same desolate stretch of Beach Highway. The similarities were too precise to be coincidental. This was the work of an organized, methodical killer.
Valerie Mack, Jane Doe number 7, age 24, disappeared 2000, partially identified in 2020 through DNA. Sex worker from Philadelphia. John Doe, the Asian male. Male victim dressed in women's clothing. Estimated death 2006 to 2010. Never identified. Shannon Gilbert, age 24. Disappeared May 1, 2010. Remains found December 2011 in a marsh, separate from the others. Her case is disputed. Police believe she accidentally drowned while fleeing in a drug-induced panic, but her family insists she was murdered. The profile of a killer. FBI profilers and criminal psychologists built a profile of the Long Island serial killer based on the evidence. Highly organized. The careful selection of victims, the consistent method of disposal, the ability to evade detection for years, all point to an intelligent, methodical killer. Familiar with the area. The dump sites are along a desolate stretch of highway, but someone would need to know the area well to use it without being observed. Access to burlap. The killer wrapped victims in burlap sacks, suggesting possible access to a supply, perhaps through work in landscaping, fishing, or agriculture. Comfortable with technology. The killer likely used the internet to find victims and may have used burner phones to avoid detection. The taunting calls to Melissa Barthelomy's sister suggest a killer who enjoys psychological games. Likely employed. The ability to maintain a hunting ground for years suggests someone with a stable life, possibly a family, a job, a normal facade. Possibly in a position of authority. Some investigators theorize the killer may work in law enforcement or a related field, given the ability to evade detection and possible inside knowledge of investigation techniques. Male, likely 25 to 50 years old. Most serial killers targeting sex workers are male and operating in this age range. Lives or works on Long Island. The intimate knowledge of the dump sites suggests local residence or employment. The investigation. The Long Island serial killer case became one of the largest and most complex investigations in New York's history. The FBI joined the Suffolk County Police Department. Thousands of tips poured in. Dozens of suspects were investigated. But the case was plagued with problems. Jurisdictional conflicts. Multiple police departments and the FBI clashed over control of the investigation. Corruption allegations. Suffolk County Police Chief James Burke was later convicted of beating a suspect and covering it up. Some wonder if corruption within the department allowed the killer to operate freely. Victim stigma. Because the victims were sex workers, some felt the investigation didn't get the priority it deserved. Lack of physical evidence. The bodies had been exposed to the elements for years. DNA and forensic evidence was limited or degraded.
Digital anonymity. The killer used burner phones and online platforms to contact victims, making tracing nearly impossible. The suspects. Over the years, several suspects have been investigated. James Burke, the disgraced former Suffolk County Police Chief. Some investigators theorized his conviction for police brutality and cover-up might be connected to the serial killings, perhaps explaining why the case went unsolved for so long. No evidence has ever linked him to the murders, but questions remain about whether his corruption hindered the investigation. John Bitroff, a carpenter from Long Island, convicted in 2017 of murdering 2 sex workers in the 1990s. His victims were found near where some of the Gilgo 4 victims were discovered. However, DNA evidence has not connected him to the Gilgo 4, and he maintains he's not the Long Island serial killer. Dr. Peter Hackett, a physician who lived near where Shannon Gilbert disappeared. He called Shannon's mother after her disappearance, claiming he ran a home for wayward girls and had helped Shannon, then later denied making the call.
His possible involvement has been heavily debated but never proven. Joseph Brewer and Michael Pock. Shannan Gilbert's last client and her driver on the night she disappeared. Both were investigated but never charged. Police believe Shannan's death was unrelated to the serial killings. Unknown local resident. Many investigators believe the killer is someone who lives on Long Island, possibly in a position that gives them freedom to move around at odd hours without suspicion, perhaps a fisherman, utility worker, or someone in law enforcement. Update: Rex Humerman, arrested July 2023. On July 13, 2023, the case took a dramatic turn. Rex Humerman, a 59-year-old architect from Massapequa Park, Long Island, was arrested and charged with the murders of 3 of the Gilgo Four, Melissa Barthelemy, Megan Waterman, and Amber Costello, and named as the prime suspect in the death of Maureen Brainard Barnes. The breakthrough came from DNA evidence linking him to the burlap and tape used to restrain victims, cell phone records placing him near where victims disappeared, internet search history showing he looked up information about the investigation and the victims, and witness descriptions matching his appearance. Humerman lived a seemingly normal life, married, with children, running an architecture firm in Manhattan, living in a large but cluttered home on Long Island. Neighbors described him as odd but not dangerous. His arrest answered some questions but opened many more. Was he responsible for all the victims? Or just some? Were there other killers using the same dump site? And how did he evade capture for over a decade? As of this writing, Rex Humerman awaits trial. He has pleaded not guilty. The unanswered questions. Even with Humerman's arrest, mysteries remain. Who killed the other victims? If Humerman is only connected to the Gilgo Four, who killed Jessica Taylor, Valerie Mack, Peaches, Baby Doe, and the others? Are there more victims? The beaches of Long Island are vast. Could there be more burial sites that haven't been discovered? What happened to Shannan Gilbert? Was her death truly accidental, as police claim, or was she another victim whose killer remains unidentified? How long was the killer active? The victims span from the late 1990s to 2010. Is that the full timeline? Or were there earlier victims? Why these women? What made the killer select these specific victims? Was it pure opportunism? Or was there a deeper, more disturbing selection process? The families fight. The families of the victims have fought tirelessly for justice. They've criticized the police investigation, hired private investigators, and kept their loved ones' names in the public eye. Shannan Gilbert's mother, Mari Gilbert, became a fierce advocate for all the victims. Tragically, she was murdered by her other daughter, who suffered from mental illness in 2016. Mari never got to see Rex Humerman's arrest. These weren't just statistics or cold case numbers. They were daughters, sisters, mothers. Women who made choices that put them at risk, yes, but who deserved protection and justice just like anyone else. The dark reality. The Long Island serial killer case exposed an uncomfortable truth. There are predators who specifically target sex workers because they know these victims are less likely to be reported missing, less likely to be searched for with urgency, less likely to generate public sympathy. It's a horrifying reminder that some victims are seen as less dead than others. The case also revealed how easy it is for a killer to operate in plain sight when they choose victims from society's margins. The legacy. The Long Island serial killer case, even with one arrest, remains one of America's most haunting unsolved mysteries. It spawned documentaries, books, podcasts, and countless theories. But beneath all the speculation is a simple, terrible fact. At least 10 people were murdered and dumped like trash along a beach highway. Some of those killers may still be free. And somewhere on Long Island, there might be someone who knows more than they're saying. A neighbor who noticed odd behavior, A family member who suspects but doesn't want to believe? A friend who heard something strange years ago and dismissed it? The ocean keeps secrets, but eventually, the tide brings everything to shore.
If these stories sent chills down your spine, don't vanish into the darkness without hitting that like button. Share your scariest experience in the comments below, because your story might be featured next. And remember, the scariest thing is missing out. So subscribe now, before the next nightmare finds you.